Hello, Pulp Hounds. So, I finished this trilogy quite recently and I stuck it on Facebook. And a few people commented and said, cool, I quite fancy these. Are they any good? And I had to say yes and no. It's the Sherlock Holmes Cthulhu case books, if you're not sure, written by James Lovegrove. Now, James Lovegrove has breathed, I think, personally, I'm a bit of a Holmes fan. I do like a bit of Holmes. And with his other Sherlock Holmes books, these are just a few, but they need a whole video on their own to kind of talk about them. I think he's breathed a bit of new life into the characters of Holmes, Watson and Moriarty, amongst others. And so when I came across the Cthulhu case books, which was Holmes versus Cthulhu, I was very excited. Two of my favourite things. Two titans of literature and important franchises in my own collection of books. But are they any good? Well, yes and no. I would heartily recommend them. Unless you're the type of person that I really wouldn't recommend you reading them. So let's have a little look and see where we're at. So, what's the problem? Well, overall, I am going to give these books glowing reviews. Absolutely. I read them really quick. I got a couple of chapters into the first one, and I thought I'm not going to want to wait and get the second one at a later date. So I ordered the second one. When I finished the first one, I ordered the third one because I knew I'd want to go straight from the second one into the third one. They gripped me. They were tremendous fun. They were thrilling. They were just an exciting romp. Lovegrove plays fast and loose with mythological convention, with how things are in both the Sherlock Holmes mythos and Lovecraft's Cthulhu mythos. So, if you're a purist, you might not like these. If you need your Holmes stories to be a human malevolence behind the occurrences, they might not be for you. If you need your mythos stories to be essentially like a retread of Call of Cthulhu, where everybody ends up dead or completely insane, they might not be for you. One thing that I really love that James Lovegrove does with these books is, like, his knowledge of Holmes stories and mythos stories is second to none. I think he knows his onions, this lad, but he takes it and warps it quite a lot. Like I said, I loved this whole thing. So, for example, it's not a huge spoiler. I always try and discuss books without spoilers. I don't want to drop spoilers in there, but it's a perfect example of how James Lovegrove makes things work. So, Holmes is obviously, in the original stories, quite... he doesn't really hold any sway with the supernatural or metaphysical. Everything he uncovers pretty much is a person faffing about like the old spooky fairground keeper in Scooby-Doo. And what Lovegrove does, for example, this is the little bit of a spoiler, is the Baker Street Irregulars. They're not the kind of urchins that they are in the original Sherlock Holmes stories. They're something less, a lot less human. And John Watson kind of talks about that these novels are kind of written from John Watson's point of view, so that works for me. He talks about how he doctored it originally in the original stories to make it more palatable for his general readership, because he needed that income coming in from the stories that he was selling to essentially the Strand magazine. Very, very, very cool. And there's a lot of stuff like that which kind of flips the whole Holmesian thing on its head for me. Because, like I said, one thing I do like about the original Holmes stories, he's so logical. And, like, when he's confronted with something Cthulhu in these books, he takes it on the chin and just kind of knows what to do. Sherlock Holmes is very much an occult detective in these books. He owns a copy of the Necronomicon, for heaven's sake. I mean, he's got to be fairly, like, deep down that mythos rabbit hole to actually own a copy of the Necronomicon. So let's have a quick look at the books. So the first one is Sherlock Holmes and the Shadwell Shadows. It's a brilliant first book in the trilogy. Now, this is a trilogy. You've got to read them in order. You can't. It's not just three unconnected novels. They have coherence that you won't understand if you jump in halfway through. And it's weird. They're not horror. If you want horror, these don't provide that. There are monsters in it. In all of them, there are beasties and horrible things. But they're not presented in a way to inspire that feeling of horror and revulsion. They are there in the same way that there's monsters in Lord of the Rings. I'm not saying this is anything like Lord of the Rings, it's very different. But there's monsters in Lord of the Rings. There's Shelob or Shelob or however you want to pronounce it. You know, she's a giant mad spider that's furious, that just wants to scoff down on you. Not in a good way. Like, that's a scary monster. But Lord of the Rings isn't a horror trilogy, is it? And these aren't horror. What they are thrilling, engaging, rip-roaring pulp romps. They are tremendous fun. Not in a humorous way or anything like that. They're just back to being a thrilling yarn that encompasses so much, and the wonderful characters mainly of Holmes and Watson, although just about everybody's in it, and Moriarty, and like the creatures, the bestiary of the Cthulhu mythos. And that works like a charm for me. It had me hooked. It feels almost like you're reading a pulp. In some areas, these novels feel like you've picked something up from the 30s or the 40s. That kind of charming style. I don't think Lovegrove's quite nailed the Victorian prose of some of the early Holmes stuff, but that doesn't matter. He can tell a fun story and an exciting story. If you like Sherlock Holmes, or you like Cthulhu, or you like Sherlock Holmes and Cthulhu, and you can get your head round the idea of new concepts and new ways of telling those stories that you love, then they are tremendous. Like I said at the start of the video, if you're a purist, maybe they're not for you. Now, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with either way. I've got friends, for example, Star Wars, I've got friends that only watch the classic trilogy, and they flipping adore that classic trilogy. I've got friends that watch every last thing that comes out because it's just Star Wars and they want to drink it in their head. If you're like the first one, with either Holmes or the Mythos, I can't recommend these to you. Because Lovegrove mixes it up in ways that you're not expecting and brings a thrilling element of storytelling to the whole thing. They're more like like Brian Lumley's Titus Crow series, where it's just a joyous, rollicking bit of fun, and it's nice to have. I don't know if you saw my Titus Crow kind of retrospective video. It's nice to have someone, I think, that can kick the Mythos beasties up the arse, because everybody in every story so far ever, pretty much, has gone mad or died or written that they're about to die and they're coming in and they're coming under the door. Which I love. I love all that. That's brilliant. I love the nihilism of Lovecraft's fiction, where everybody gets knackered. It doesn't matter if you're a nice person or a git or what have you. Like, you're going to cop it because it's a Cthulhu Mythos story. And it does make a right nice change sometimes to have somebody that knows what they're doing and doesn't go insane when they see something and doesn't just become a gibbering wreck in the corner, you know, repeating the same sentence. They're already here. They're already here. Like, to have somebody, in this case it's Holmes and Watson, that have got the mental wherewithal and capabilities to come up against these beasties and handle the mental destruction that often ensues, but also have the occult knowledge to kind of battle them. And that's why I wouldn't recommend them to everybody. I very much doubt James Lovegrove is ever going to see this. I'm not telling people not to buy your books, mate, because these were just brilliant. But, you know, having read them and had a little look on Goodreads and Amazon and stuff like that at reviews, I kind of get why they've really pissed some people off. I just thought, and I know it's a horrible word, but it's a word that's like, it's not even a real word. I just thought they were like genuinely unputdownable. If I had a spare 10 minutes, I'd get through as much of them as I could. I'd rush home from whatever I was doing just to get plonked on the sofa next to Victor and have a couple of chapters. I enjoyed them that much. But don't forget, they play fast and loose and free and easy with established canonical lore. But I think that just, like I said at the start of the video, injects a little bit of new life and a bit of excitement into something that we might know so well. Just someone coming along and kind of flipping it on their head. It's brilliant. So the first book, The Shadwell Shadows, feels a bit like it's setting things up for the trilogy. Feel like the first book in the Lord of the Rings trilogy. It kind of feels like that. Moriarty is brought into it, and he's quite different. By the end of the book, he's very, very different from the Moriarty from Conan Doyle's original stories. But again, is that a bad thing? You know, like if you like Doctor Who, loads of people have had a creative input. Yep, a certain group of people created that character and the concepts, and then loads of other people have run with it and made some brilliant stuff. You know, like the Tom Baker, Philip Hinchcliffe kind of classic horror-inspired stories. A lot of die-hard Doctor Who fans would say they're brilliant, but that's not, like Sidney Newman's vision for Doctor Who. That's completely changed. That's something totally different, keeping the same name and character and ethos, but flipping it on its head. So by doing that to an established franchise such as Sherlock Holmes or Cthulhu, you can actually come up with something that's equally awesome as the original stories, but just in a totally different way. The second one is the Miskatonic Monstrosities. This was brilliant. I couldn't pick a favourite out of the three because it feels like one long story. So picking a favourite is very difficult. One thing I loved about this one, before I get into that, the first one is so hard to find in hardback for a sensible price. I don't know why, but if you can get them in hardback, this is like gorgeously embossed into the cover. There's no dust jacket. It's just this like Victorian style embossed tentacles and swirliness. I just think they're gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. So again, trying to talk about them, but without dropping any spoilers, because I want these stories, if you're thinking, geez, they sound proper good, I want the intricacies of the storytelling to be revealed to you as it was to me in little bits and like little exciting moments. There is like a novella in the middle of this one, which has garnered a little bit of stick on some of the like reviewy sites, but I really liked it. The novel wouldn't lose anything from losing the novella that's in the middle. It's like a diary. All these are presented like kind of diaries and journals and records. And in the first one, it's James Lovegrove talking about the death of Mr. Henry Prothero Lovecraft, a long-distant relative from Providence, who leaves him like paperwork and stories and stuff that very probably came from Howard Phillips Lovecraft. So again, that's a nice Lovecraftian trope that I think that works, keeping it like diary entries and letters and journals and things. Even when it seems weird that John Watson, especially in this one, there's moments where he's like, why is John Watson keeping a diary at this point? But obviously we need it to happen as a reader. So yeah, there's a novella right slap bang in the middle of this that's a whole separate diary. And I don't think the story would suffer if that novella was taken out. But it's just a right nice thing in the middle. I wasn't expecting it. And I'm reading this romp and then it's like, oh, we're on something totally kind of different. We're in a different place with different people. What's going on? And you get this great novella in the middle, and then it's straight back into Holmes and Watson charging about having adventures. It's like almost like a film pastiche portrayal of Holmes. I didn't find him exactly like Arthur Conan Doyle's depiction of Holmes. More like I kind of see him running across a cliff top, holding his deerstalker on with his cape flapping in the wind, and Watson running behind him with his pistol. That kind of, not comedic slapstick. There's nothing comedy about these, but just that excitement, that romp. So, some of the characters that you would expect to appear, they get like further development in this one, and I think it's very cool kind of what happens. And again, trying to discuss these without spoilers, I think it's very cool what happens. Genuinely, like, didn't see it coming, exciting, kind of whoa, where's this gonna go now? And it goes into Volume 3, Sherlock Holmes and the Sussex Sea Devils. This was great. I thoroughly enjoyed it. the whole... I really don't want to give away any spoilers. With all these books, it kind of builds and builds and builds. James Lovegrove has got a shockingly vast vision of the mythos, where if Cthulhu's there, you can run up to him. It's almost like a brilliant, fun checklist of who's who in the mythos, with some new things thrown in that this guy's invented and some old classics. It's almost like your favourite pop band doing like a set list that's got stuff from their new album that they've spent a long time writing, and you want to hear the hit singles, but actually hearing the new album stuff played live in amongst the hit singles, it's enough to keep your attention. But then you start to kind of think, actually, these are really great, I like these, I'm going to buy this new album. It's same kind of thing. And yeah, with most of them, especially this one towards the end, like Lovegrove ramps up, I want to say he ramps up the bonkersness, but that's not the right word. It's not bonkers. I don't mean that in a derogatory way. I just mean how he just, it's like, sod it, we're going to tell a story, and if we need kind of huge, insane set pieces to occur to bring that story to a conclusion, sod it, I'm going to chuck these beasties in there and see what happens. And it's wonderful. A lot in this one wasn't really what I thought. This one's a bit Shadow over Innsmouth type thing. And there were certain bits that I was expecting to be something because of how Lovegrove had established everything, and when it wasn't, I was like, whoa, I wasn't expecting that. And it goes in strange and unusual directions, even for a Cthulhu mythos story. So yeah, they are like a pulpy romp with grotesque baddies and hideous beasties and insane asylums and unsolvable crimes. And in the middle of it all, there's Watson being a stoic dude. I genuinely love all the Sherlock Holmes stories, but it's Watson that I gravitate towards. I would want like a pint of real ale with Watson, definitely, and a quick puff on the briar, and he could tell me all the things that he's done and killed and encountered. So a brilliant Watson, who sometimes maybe asks a bit too much exposition, but kind of gets it in the end. And a Holmes who genuinely is an adept occultist. He knows his onions with occult sciences from all around the world and from other worlds that we've never even dreamt of going to. He knows what's going on, and it's just so exciting to read these stories and have it's almost like multiverse Sherlock Holmes. So that, like, when a story is being told, maybe this is Holmes from an alternate dimension. Maybe it's not our beloved Arthur Conan Doyle's Holmes. Maybe this is just a snapshot of what could have happened to Holmes in a different dimension that's very similar to ours, but different enough for supernature and the mystical to exist and be embraced as a science by Holmes. So I heartily recommend you run out and read them. Second-hand, they're not too expensive. You can still get them new on Amazon. I think you can get them on electronic devices like Kindle and I don't know any others. I'm saying stuff like I know all about electronic things, going, they're available on Kindle, but I don't know what I'm on about. But I have seen them in the Kindle store. So, and do check out some of James Lovegrove's other Sherlock Holmes stories. I haven't read it yet. I've only recently got this one. In The Manifestations of Sherlock Holmes, there is a follow-up apparently. A follow-up short story to what happens in the trilogy. So I'm looking forward to reading that. I do like these. I love the element of mysticism and things that are thoroughly macabre thrown at Holmes. But I think that's a video for another day. I'm currently on with the Lewis Gresh Holmes versus Cthulhu trilogy. I've finished the first one. I am thoroughly enjoying those as well. They are so like a polar opposite of the James Lovegrove absolute romps. These are very different. And I think when I finish the trilogy, that's going to demand another video, because Holmes and Cthulhu, what's not to love? Genuinely. So thank you for watching, you lovely folks. And I will see you in the next video.